So, what if that divine power people have worshipped for thousands of years, the force that inspires awe, demands sacrifice, and holds communities together, what if it isn't a supernatural being at all? What if that power is actually us, society itself? Okay, let's dive into one of the most mind-bending ideas in the history of social science, from the father of sociology himself, Émile Durkheim.
And he put it pretty bluntly, right here in his own words from 1897. He says the power is society, of which the gods are its reified form. Now, reified is the key word here. It basically means taking a big, abstract idea and treating it like it's a real, concrete thing. So what Durkheim is saying is that we feel this powerful, invisible force of our social group, and we give it a name, a face, a story. We call it a god.
So you have to wonder, how on earth did he get to that conclusion? I mean, this wasn't just some wild guess. It was the final piece of a giant puzzle he'd spent his whole life trying to solve. So what we're going to do is retrace his steps, follow the clues, and see exactly how he built this incredible theory.
To get his conclusion about religion, you first have to understand the one problem that really obsessed him. And it wasn't about God at all. It was about what keeps us from falling apart.
You see, Durkheim was living in a time of massive social upheaval. Old traditions, communities, even religious bonds were starting to fray. He was terrified that society would just dissolve into a chaotic mess of individuals, all looking out for number one. So his entire life's work was this epic search for the source of social solidarity. You could call it the invisible glue that holds us all together.
To find this glue, he came up with this idea of social facts. These are things like laws, morals, customs, even language. Just think about it for a second. They exist completely outside of you. They were here long before you were born, and they put this immense pressure on you to act and think in certain ways. For Durkheim, this was the proof. Proof that society was a real thing, a force in its own right, something much bigger than just a collection of people.
So Durkheim was on the right track, but he was still missing a crucial piece. The big breakthrough moment, what he himself called a revelation, didn't actually come from his own work. It came from the ideas of another brilliant and kind of controversial Scottish scholar.
And that scholar's name was William Robertson Smith. Now, Smith was a Bible expert, but he was looking at ancient religions in a totally new way. He wasn't trying to prove whether they were true or not. He wanted to understand what they did for the group. And reading Smith's work was the key that unlocked the entire puzzle for Durkheim.
So here was Smith's big idea. He said, we've been looking at religion all wrong. For most of human history, it wasn't about what you privately believed in your head. It was about what you did together as a group. The real power wasn't in some personal faith. It was in the collective rituals everyone performed together.
And this quote just nails it. Smith realized that ancient rituals weren't about getting your soul into heaven later. They were about making sure your tribe, your communities, survived right here and now. For Durkheim, this idea was an absolute game changer.
All right, so now Durkheim is armed with this powerful new lens, focused on the ritual, on the group action. So he needed a test case. He wanted to find the simplest, most basic form of religion he could find to see this social engine in its purest state. And he found his perfect laboratory in the reports about the totemic systems of Aboriginal groups in Central Australia, like the Arante. His thinking was simple. If you could figure out how religion worked here, in what he saw as its most elementary form, he could uncover the universal rules that apply to all religions everywhere. So how does this actually work? Well, it starts when the whole clan gets together. They perform these really intense, shared rituals. We're talking chanting, dancing for hours, all focused on a shared symbol, their totem. Now this could be an animal, like a kangaroo, or even a plant. And through this intense collective energy, a totally ordinary symbol gets infused with this extraordinary power. It becomes sacred.
But what is this power? I mean, where does this feeling of sacredness actually come from? This question gets us to the absolute core of Durkheim's theory, the emotional fuel that makes this whole thing run.
Durkheim had this fantastic name for it, collective effervescence. Think about that electric feeling you get in a packed stadium when your team scores, or that sense of unity at a huge concert when everyone's singing the same song. It's that powerful, almost overwhelming feeling of being part of something way bigger than yourself. It's like a social electricity that's generated by the group itself.
And here is the big insight. That intense, anonymous energy that people feel during the ritual, it's not coming from some god or spirit, it's coming from them. It is the raw power of their own society that they are feeling directly. But because they can't see the source, they can't point to it, they do the next best thing. They project all of that power and awe onto their shared symbol, the totem.
So the totem itself isn't sacred. It's basically just a screen. The real source of the power, the real object of worship, is the group. In a way, the clan is unknowingly worshiping its own unity, its own collective strength, just disguised as a sacred animal or plant.
Okay, so that's a really fascinating theory about ancient clans for sure. But does it have anything to do with us today? Is this whole process of creating sacred symbols just a thing of the past, or is it still happening right now, all around us?
Well, as it turns out, an anthropologist named Ralph Linton saw this exact same process playing out in a very modern setting, an American Army division in World War I. The 42nd Rainbow Division was made up of guys from all over the country who were total strangers. They needed to build an intense bond, and they needed to do it fast. And the way they did it? Well, Durkheim would have recognized it in a heartbeat.
The parallels are just uncanny. They were united by their name and their symbol, a rainbow, which they wore as a patch. There were these powerful unwritten rules, taboos really, that said no other division could use their symbol. All their group solidarity, their intense bond, was focused on that little rainbow patch. And even today, the modern 42nd Division looks back on the original members like they were ancient ancestors. It is a perfect example of modern totemism.
And this just goes to show you that the object itself doesn't really matter. The essence of this whole process is the shared reverence that a group projects onto a symbol. It could be a kangaroo, yeah, but it could also be a national flag, a sports team's logo, or even a corporate brand. The social machinery underneath is exactly the same.
So all this leaves us with a final thought. Durkheim's theory isn't just about the ancient past. It's a powerful tool for understanding right now. It asks us to look at our own lives, our own groups, at work, in our hobbies, in our communities, and ask, what are the totems that we gather around? What are the sacred symbols that generate that collective effervescence for us and truly bind our world together?